mask get set, they ain't ready, I bet. But I go, baby, go, my levels connect. Every word death row gets sentenced to death. They ain't breathing so well like I stepped on their chest. Broken ribs, collapsed lungs. Spoken fibs, they chat dumb. Capitalists and rat runs, rat race until the rat's done. Exhibit of action, testament to passion. My fire is the A-bomb, they firing some cap guns. Blah, 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 they chat pathetic on the record. They lease beats, I'm direct debit on the record. Best foot forward when I'm stepping on a record. I represent the heaven sent raw essence on the record. Spitting bars over bars, I'm a gymnast, but bars are unparalleled. Bar squares, barber chair, fresh cuts, barber hair. No bar fights, I bar fair, screwed to the ground like bar chairs. Black sheep saying bar yeah, bar none, I'm a barbarian. I'm a bar scaring them. Got bars in my hair, I'm a Bastafarian. Barking out the wrong tree, my tree bark wearing skin. Rocky bar, boa, bars after bars, my bars declared to win. Back to trade and barter, I just bar to start the party grins. From a bastard to a king.
Zone now, found a way home now. Tune in the zone now, get high and flow.
So many lessons learned through the tears of a clown. So many things I had to lose so I could be found. No love lost, no takes missed, no mistakes, no failures. Enough piss takes to take piss, but I cleaned up and made it a place to wish make, to make wishes, to shift shape and shape shift. Shift space on spaceships to shift phase and phase shift. Tip the scales in horizontal fashion. Balance spiraling momentum like a perpetual handspin. A self-kidnapping hostage trying to pay its own ransom. A mirrored mirror's own perspective telling it it's handsome. A self-employed employer who is his sole employee. My own subject to monarch, a born to royalty. A straight line curled around itself, deformed or coil free. To send free energy through galaxies like Tesla's dreams. A juggler with no hands who never dropped a ball. A stick-free plate spinner who's never seen a plateful. A paralyzed dwarf who lives his life standing tall. A deaf-mute receptionist who handles every call. I'm internationally local and locally global. My individual value is calculated from the total. Known as the mime artist whose only tools are vocal. A commoner, the peasantry, the ruling class, a noble.
I spent my whole life just trying to find a balance. Wearing the paper crown in a cardboard palace. Drinking from a steady flow, I keep an empty chalice. Appearing to be here, but in a moment I will vanish. Spent my whole life just trying to find a balance. Wearing a paper crown in a cardboard palace. Drinking from a steady flow, I keep an empty chalice. Appearing to be here, but in a moment I will vanish.
The one-sided paradox, juxtaposed synonyms. The guilt-free sinner and the guilt-stricken innocence. The rock is unbeat until the water makes it sediment. And nothing is an actual fact in spite of all the evidence. We start off as volcanoes and over time become geysers. Holes in the ground spurt hot water and steam up. We know what we have seen, but those on no side don't believe us. You can't spell belief without a lie, so words will come between us. Who dreams a dream? Does the dreamer build the dream or vice versa? Why do we have the power to make life but also murder? And how comes every time we travel the journey grows further and heaven feels so much closer whenever devils try to burn us? If we're reaching for the heavens and the heavens reaching for us, we should be more confident and refrain from being nervous. Trust the results of our self-searches instead of trusting churches, because I found my divinity and I wish to share it further. I made peace with my own hell. The devil said to me, don't fail, and my God wished.
Good morning and warmest of welcomes. Welcome to Charmain Berry on the Telly, and this is the Real Breakfast Show. Just want to say thank you to Mar Radio, who was playing us in there with these two recent tracks, Parallel Lines and Balance. And check out Mar Radio's stuff on Facebook. He's just released a fantastic new single as well. Thank you. Well, the date today is August the 15th, 2020, in the crazy year 2020. And yeah, another roller coaster ride for everybody this week with lots of things going on. And never before, I think, has it been as important to learn how to settle ourselves and really sort of go inwardly and find different and new ways of coping with all the things that are happening in this very sort of uncertain time. So my second guest today is a lovely young lady who is helping people to do just that. Her name is Kay Hagen, and she has been dedicated and committed to a daily breathwork practice every day for the last year, which is pretty up there. That's pretty committed. and she really wants to share that with the world. So she started her own little YouTube channel, and she's sharing breathwork practices with people. So if you want to learn more about how to kind of steady and center yourself, then stay tuned in and watch out for Kay later on. That'll be around 11:15. We've also got joining us as usual, Christina Batty, with her weekly Mayan calendar report. And again, this is an amazing way of learning more about ourselves, more about how to sort of draw on our potential and our unique qualities. And if you want to know more about the Mayan calendar, tune into last week's show, where Christina was a main guest and was explaining in a lot more detail about how the Mayan calendar works. It's really, really interesting stuff. So that'll be in about 45 minutes. And I have joining me this morning, which I'm quite excited about and quite unprepared for, for a special guest. We have with us Paul Baker. And I've been working with Paul Baker over the last year or so. He's a big part of the Naimos Centre team and crew, and also with our TV breakfast show here as well. And it really is a privilege to be able to speak to him in this way. There's plenty of things that I want to get to know about Paul as well. So he's joining us live from his home. Paul, are you there, darling? Welcome.
Hey. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Paul. Good to see you here, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on the show. That's really, really wonderful.
I'm looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Now, I'm just going to read out a little bit of info that I found about you out there in LinkedIn world. But, you know, I see you as being like a real formidable character and a real advocate, helping people with mental health issues and problems. And you've worked in so many different settings. I mean, I'm going to ask you more about that in a second. Well, you've also you've worked in many different kinds of recovery approaches, peer support work practice, and you work with people, helping them towards their own recovery from their own kind of experience. You've also got lived experience of mental health difficulties, and you have a good understanding of what recovery involves, of course, having been through this yourself. And how much, you know, supportive networks, community networks and involvement is really, really important. You've got a particular interest and experience of working internationally in diverse communities around the world, in development, and engaging service providers and people who use services in issues that concern them. You're very sort of hands-on, Paul. You seem to be kind of involved here and there and in lots of different places, and of course this is, you know, you have a connection to the Naimos Centre. Let's start there, actually. Let's start a little bit talking about what you're doing there and your involvement and what's happening at the moment presently in Manchester, in Hume and online around the community. Tell us a bit about the communities that you're involved in, the groups that you've been developing there.
Okay, so I've been away from Manchester for about 20 years, and I came back about 7 or 8 years ago. And I've learnt over the last 30, 40 years, I've had loads of experiences internationally and locally around different ways of thinking about how to overcome crisis, distress, overwhelming experiences, and thinking about how to take on those challenges in our lives. And when I see what mental health services do in a lot of cities, including our own city, I'm very concerned. I'm very worried because the assumptions that I see most services working from is that there's something wrong with people that they can fix.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that, and that's why I identify myself as somebody with lived experience. I've not had the misfortune, I'd say. I've not had the necessity to actually be a formal user of psychiatric services at the level of hospital, which is just good fortune, actually, and therefore, for the grace of God or gods, I could have been that person, but I wasn't, and that's kind of the luck of the draw, really. So what I realise is, through my own lived experience and also through the people I've met along my way, that rather than thinking of ourselves as having broken brains, or to be that we need these interventions from other people to fix us. But actually, a lot of these journeys of understanding and healing and recovery. We need to talk about that word a little bit more later.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Is actually something that's best done in a community. That our own individual journeys are enhanced by sharing those journeys with others who are who have similar issues in their lives.
Yeah.
And this has become a movement, if you like, of peer support or peer-to-peer, or even the one I like is the intentional peer support, which is actually really founded on strong values. Now, the difficulty is that with all of these kinds of new practices, innovation, which are founded on human rights and very strong value base, a lot of them end up being colonized by services where they take the language of it, but they don't take the spirit.
Yeah.
So they say they're doing recovery, but they do recovery to you. Well, that's a complete misunderstanding of the word recovery. Recovery is not something you can do to anybody. It's something that emerges, and it's not a manualized journey. It's a life journey full of ups and downs, and it's not about hard facts. It's about soft energies. It's about hope and trust and connection. And these are the things that I think are underestimated in the understandings and journeys of how people get through issues and crisis. So I wanted to maximize that opportunity, and NIMOS to me was the place that you can do that, because it calls itself a radical community arts centre, and I've been looking to put a project around emotions and crisis and dealing with shit in that kind of space, because I think it opens up so many opportunities for creativity, because people are not walking in there with preconceptions about mental illness and thresholds about, oh, your needs are too great for us to be able to cope with you, go somewhere else. I feel a completely different energy, which is it's all about the person, and it's person-centered, and the groups that we form are the groups that are meant to be, and we do what we can as a group. So where I get that from is my training, I'm founded in the idea of community development. And community development is process work, and it's working with groups, identifying agendas, working in very democratic ways, and looking for fixes which are non-hierarchic and inclusive and enable participation and acknowledge everybody as an expert. Either from your direct life experience or from your professional knowledge or whatever, but we share the idea that we all bring something to the table. That's the foundation of my belief system, and that's why I'm in NIMOS. In terms of what we're trying to do is fill the holes that other groups and communities maybe haven't addressed. So we've moved into things like working with people who hear voices. So we have a weekly Hearing Voices group run at the moment on Zoom, because we set the group initially and we met in the NIMOS Centre, but since March that's not been possible, so we migrated onto Zoom, and we talk about voices, and we talk about voices from the point of view of respect for everybody's explanation. There is no right way of thinking about this experience, and it's not an illness and it's not a symptom, it's a human experience, and we start from there. And what I'd like to do is try to see if we can have this whole interview without using the word mentalhelth.
I'm so with you on that one. Those two words together just go right through me, and I think we can. I think there's certainly room to start a campaign to get that mood. I find it very difficult. There's lots. It's
very reductionist, isn't it, Charmain? I find it really, really limiting, actually. And also, it just tells me a lot about where services think they are.
Yeah.
See if they think it's all to do with the brain, because that's mental. I mean, what is it? I think it just misses such a point. And actually, there's been a real paradigm shift in the last 15, 20 years. No, well, let's say most felt in the last 5 years, where there's a big challenge now to this bio-psycho-social model, which founds our challenges and the way we express ourselves. We're in various kinds of crisis as illnesses with symptoms which can be fixed with cures, and I really struggle with that, and I really feel like call for an abandonment of that idea, and let's try and think about this as being about differences,
Yeah.
challenges in our lives, you know, trying to really shape it up around what I know about what happens to people and how, and observing, I mean, part of people's journeys when they've actually healed, they've gone through that journey, and actually the part of that journey that was very, very difficult and complicated and was a crisis has been part of their learning and actually has led them to be the person that they become. Unfortunately, I find that currently we pour millions and millions of pounds into mental health. But I have to pay you £1 every time I say that.
We're just so conditioned to call it that.
Yeah, but I will use the word psychiatry because that's what they call themselves. But so we have a very psychiatrized service, which at its basis believes that biologically there's something going on, and they may be right, but they haven't found any proof that there is yet.
Yeah.
But they play the game like they have, you know. So to take example, schizophrenia.
All theory. It's just theory.
You read any of the websites on schizophrenia by professionals, it's like a done deal. It exists. Actually, when you look at the science, there is no evidence at this stage that there is such a thing. It's a constructed illness. However, if you are living in terror and fear and anxiety because you've got this label, me telling you that you haven't got what you've been told that you've got is a very complicated story. So I'm not saying you haven't got it. I'm just saying let's open up that journey and that discovery to include the idea that this could be other things as well. So if you are hearing voices right now, it's not necessarily to put it into that biological plate. It could be lots of other things.
Yeah.
And in fact, voices throughout history have been considered to be, you know, things that have come from heaven or from the other place, or, you know, I mean, you know, there's been so many understandings, shamanic and all sorts of other understandings about what this thing is when we ourselves talk to ourselves in a way which seems to be disembodied and not ourselves, and nobody else can hear that conversation going on, but it's so real to us that it actually can become very consuming in terms of communication between
and like you say, outside of the psychiatric model, there's plenty, you know, we just had somebody talking about A Course in Miracles last week, and there's different approaches of embracing spirituality. We know we've got internal family systems coming through, we're understanding the actual structure and the makeup of the psyche, and that we are having these conversations with ourselves. Maybe there are, when we start to embrace the spirituality of human beings, many, many other things going on. And then we've got this very sort of rigid psychiatric system that keeps insisting that it's got something to do with dopamine and serotonin, and we need to balance it out.
Absolutely, and in, you know, in the context of your program and the kind of guests that you've had over the last 4 months or so, you know, I hear a lot of this idea that this energy is in our community, that all these people are available. Unfortunately, usually that ends up being services and kind of opportunities for healing that is often offered by the privileged to the privileged, and as a generalization. And I'm not saying that's some of your guests have actually taken on that challenge and moved beyond that. So there's a whole lot of people who need to hear that this maybe isn't is not necessarily a crisis that can be regarded in terms of symptomology and all that kind of thing, but is actually a journey that you can go on. So why isn't it available to the people who need it the most? Because we know now that there's been a change in the way that we understand what is going on when people can no longer communicate, live well, and are struggling. And that's to do with adverse childhood events. It's to do with what happened to you in your life. It's to do with trauma, you know, the fear of being killed or, you know, at death's door. And also the range of life experiences that we can go through, which actually can represent challenges to us. And also the very fact that no single brain is the same. They're all different. Every brain is different. So all of us, so the idea that, you know, there is a normal and that you are abnormal or is like, I think that is the problem. The actual problem, Ola was talking to me this morning and saying maybe we need to have a diagnosis for normal, because if it's actually being normal, that's the problem. Because it's an unreachable ideal. Nobody can be there. And actually, who wants to be normal and standard anyway? I want to be different. You know, there's a kind of, I think, so back to your question, NIMOS is great because it's full of oddballs. It's full of everybody that I want to be in with, where we really try to work out different kinds of journeys and actually acknowledging our own knowledge and wisdom and expertise in doing that, that we have confidence in ourselves, that we can find our own answers. And I've drawn this model from the United States, from Brazil, about creating community. And then that community is about compassion and support for each other. And what we're highlighting is a human to human connection with each other, which is founded on connection and trust, and from communication and trust, and humor, and being funny, and having the opportunity to laugh. Yeah. So that's Kizzy, by the way.
Thank you, Z. That was so sweet. No, I'm totally with you, Paul. You know, and it feels like we're kind of, I think we've been through, like, even the psychiatric sort of energy has been through a journey. We were talking a few weeks ago about, remembering toxic psychiatry, when that kind of came out, and Peter Breggin, and back in the sort of the 80s, and this realization that this thing's being put on us, and like something that probably could be the integration of us as becoming whole human beings, and this sort of subconscious emerging and other is being pathologized to the extent that it is, and kind of stopping, the realization around all that.
And we have to fight back, because you see, to me, I believe, like, in the city of Manchester, in Greater Manchester, we get the psychiatric services we deserve. Because if we're not saying to that space, we want you to do something different, they'll just crack on and do what they do. And at the moment, it's a very, very kind of psychiatric clinical model that's in play. And they, if you end up in crisis, in all likelihood, unless you've got loads of advocates and supports around you, you'll be probably formally admitted to a psychiatric institution where you will be amongst 30 to 40 other people in crisis, locked in together, where if you don't comply, they'll assess you and they'll work out what they think, but at some point they're going to treat you. And when they treat you, normally that will be with medication. Absolutely, probably up to 90%, probably more. It's very difficult to say you don't want it, because that would be a sign of the fact that your illness is speaking, not you. So what they do is they come up with a kind of vibe that your non-compliance with the treatment is actually a sign of your illness. And this is Kafka. This is like Catch-22. So if you're well enough to fly, no, because you recognise that you'll die when you fly, then you're well, because that's sane. It's sane to know that you're fearful about it. But in this sense, the very fact that you say you don't want treatment is a sign that you are so ill that you lack insight into the fact that you are ill. Therefore, we must medicate you to stabilise you, to allow you to be able to leave this place and to go back to the community. So I had a mother rang me up 2 days ago. And I was saying to her, she was telling me about the fact that she wanted to join. We've got a parents group, we've got a families for recovery group, just to let you know. And this group is a way we mutual support, where we share, strategize, share what's in our hearts, cry together about the difficulty of having somebody in our lives who's an adult and is in these services, and especially is in and out of crisis services. It's such a journey and a ride. It's hard work for the families. So what I'm seeing is, so somebody wants to join the group. She rang me up and explained to me that somebody in her life had just been sectioned and was now in this hospital in North Manchester, and really distressed about how the whole thing worked. And anyway, we talked through that, and I said at the end of the conversation, oh, by the way, if you're interested, we've written a letter about the future of mental health services in Manchester.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Burnham, and we're saying they've got a plan to build a new 150-bed hospital. I told that to her, and she just laughed. It was one of those sad, cynical laughs. What? So my son can go back in there to be injected, and then come back out again, and nothing happens, and no support is provided.
Yeah.
So we've got an issue here. How do I bring the energy, Charmain, that you know about, that really quality energy of healing, and make it available to the people who need it most? If you are black, if you are young, if you're male, and you live in central Manchester, you're 9 times more likely to be admitted into one of these places, to have coercive treatments put upon you, and that you will stay there longer, and you're much more likely to be diagnosed with a condition which they don't think talking therapies will help. So the challenge is, this thing called psychosis is not as scary as we think. It's not that much different from neurosis or whatever. Where are the therapists? Where's the psychotherapists and psychodynamic who are working with people, who hear voices, have visions, who have all sorts of other reality states existing within them, worldviews which are complicated. Wow, you know, I mean, that would be so powerful if people had stepped into that space.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally hear that. They are thin on the ground, you know, certainly. And where's the training? Where's the kind of the motivation for people to work with what, you know, might be seen as a difficult client group? And actually, is it? You know, when we start to really reframe the experience and what's happening with people. Can I just say as well, a little bit on that note also, like when I've been working with private clients and people who have access to stuff, the services are not that much better. Even if you're like booking into the Priory and these kinds of places, expecting it to be like this sort of utopia when you get in there and everything gets sorted, that is not the case. You know, it doesn't matter how much money you've got or, you know, what your demographic is or whatever. It just doesn't seem to be there. There are people running around looking for this help, this kind of help.
You know, it's really so complicated for any family. I mean, I really feel sorry for anybody, and for our viewer. You know, if you happen to be, you know, in a situation where yourself or somebody you know is thinking about entering into this journey, really check it out before you make that, to start that journey. It is possible to get a decent service sometimes. I'm not. There's some great workers in the NHS and in the
really well-meaning people in there, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think we're all constrained by a system which actually says it's about this and that and that, and it's so under-resourced that really most of the relationships are not founded on knowledge of each other. They're founded on a transaction. You need some housing support. You need some money. You need this. So you don't really get to know each other. It's just fixing sort of short-term things in your life rather than looking at the bigger picture. So back to this thing called recovery. There's a problem. You see, like this. Okay, in Manchester right now, they're planning to build a great big brand new hospital of 155 beds. We don't think this is a good idea. We think there should be another way of doing this, because building a big institution like that, you know, which is unaccountable and remote from where most people live, continues that clinical energy. And we want those services to be in the community, including when you need maybe some safety, and you need to be safe and you need to have somewhere to stay to be able to chill out and to reset and to bring down that crisis. But not 155 bed hospital. That took, you know, for you know, however well intentioned, and I do think it's well intentioned. I don't think this is something which is being pushed upon us, you know, in a negative way. The people behind it, the architects, the planners, the clinical directors, all the people in that, they just kind of opted for a model which is effectively NHS default. We need to have a place for people in crisis. We'll do a number count. We come up with 155 beds. We've got a unit at the moment which is pretty horrible, dormitory style. We'll refurbish a building. We'll a lovely new building with ensuite rooms, etc. But it's still got the nurse stations, the big windows. It's still got the double locked doors. Instead of having key chains now, they've got little beep beeps, you know, things like that, which you can actually implant in your head, you know, so nobody can steal it off you. No, I'm joking about that. But actually, they are getting there. Let me tell you, that's not only half a joke. But the whole idea is they create a new environment, but in its soul and in its heart, it's still a clinical service, which is founded on nursing and psychiatry. And they're trying to tell us that this new hospital will be holistic. And we're thinking, well, how's that going to happen? You know, I think they mix. The trouble is, there's a building, but they're putting the old approach from the old building and just dropping it into the new building without any real consideration of the need to change thinking, practice, and culture. How do we work differently with people? For a start, why all these locked doors? Why these seclusion rooms? Why this treatment, which is founded on the idea that if somebody doesn't comply with the treatment, or they are excited and upset and distressed and maybe fighty, that it's okay to hold them down and to restrain them, including, I'm afraid to say, putting knees on people. It does happen. So this, to me, absolutely fits into Black Lives Matter and Black Minds Matter, because the principal groups that are using our services are the oppressed and the marginalised, and the poor is absolutely overrepresented in those services. So we think they're looking too much at the clinical issues and not enough at the social issues, and we need to shift it towards those kinds of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's about human rights and equalities.
Absolutely. You know, and bringing it up to date outside of that psychiatric model, there's been huge developments in the understanding. We just touched on it around trauma and adverse life experiences. And we're even looking at epigenetics and the role of genes in our trauma experiences. And, you know, and we know that we are kind of like manifesting those into our life. You know, it's not rocket science now.
No,
Everybody kind of knows this. The books are there, the papers are there. What's the problem?
Well, I think the problem is that, you know, you when you're in a system like this, you tend up employing people who are like you. So you sort of maintain a kind of idea of what the NHS particularly thinks is appropriate and necessary. And from their point of view, they are fixated on risk. So so basically what they do every time somebody comes to seek a service, and they do a gatekeeping exercise, and gatekeeping exercise, are you really ill enough and it's not really about how distressed you are, actually. It's okay, suicidization, have you had any thoughts about suicide? Boom, that will put you in the group. You know, have you ever thought about hurting yourself or anybody else? Boom. And that's the risk assessment. It's your behavior in relationship to yourself and to other people, which is the determining factor that leads you into psychiatric care. Yeah. Once you're in there, they spend a few days assessing you, but they're assessing you really within that medical model, absolutely about trying to find out what's wrong with you, because that's their modality, and they don't have anything else. No. They toy with the word for recovery, but they don't really know what it is. Yeah. Yeah. It's complicated. It's really complicated.
It is complicated. You know, it is complicated, and we can send out prayers that hopefully this is changing, that over time it is going to get there. And thanks to people like you, Paul, you know, raising the awareness around this and wanting to make these sorts of changes. You've actually written an amazing letter to Andy Burnham about the.
Hello, Andy. If you're watching.
Hi, Andy. Yeah, please come on the show. We'd love to chat with you on here. That would be brilliant. Come into our community and share your thoughts with us. We would really appreciate that. But meanwhile, I mean, is this letter still online, Paul? Is it still going around?
Yeah, I mean, you can find it. Or if you go to the NIMOS website, you'll find a reference to it on the wellbeing pages, and that's called the living room. So if you go in there, you'll find a link. But if you want to find out about it, just Google it. You'll probably find it there as well. So what we've done, we've taken a different position, which is consistent with what I've been talking about. So rather than what you've got now, when I was first in Manchester 30, 40 years ago, the voluntary sector, as it was then called, we're now called the Voluntary Community and Social Enterprises, VCSEs. They keep on changing who we are, but they are. But the small charitable voluntary organisations used to be very much around advocacy. We didn't have these formal contractual arrangements to provide services on behalf of the state like we have now. So the people who used to be the advocates, the community organisations groups that used to be the advocates for the people with mental health, are now providing services. So they're compromised. They can't speak with truth to power, because if they do, that could compromise their funding. So people are much more quiet than they used to be. So on that basis, how do you create an energy? And as I said at the beginning, we get the psychiatry we deserve, because if we're not curious and quiet and ask for change, why would it occur? Yeah. So we've sort of penned a letter, and the letter came from the family group that I talked to you about. They were so upset about what was happening on an everyday basis to their adult sons and daughters in relationship to these services, that when they heard that their plan was to just build a whole new big hospital, drop it into the North Manchester General Hospital site, and that's going to provide a service for everybody in Manchester just about. So it's a long way to go from
Where is it? Where's the site intended to be? Where in Manchester?
It's on the site of North Manchester General Hospital, which is up beyond Harper Hay or somewhere, you know. So it's a journey through town for a lot of people. Yeah. It's quite a long way for families to go visit, you know. But there's all sorts of it. But fundamentally, we felt they're not listening to us. The Greater Manchester Mental Health Trust, that's responsible for deciding that we need a 155-bed hospital, didn't consult anybody about this. They just decided it. And now they're saying they've just launched a public engagement exercise asking us what we think of their wonderful new plan. But no possibility of actually determining what that plan is, because that's already decided. That's not consultation. No. It is kind of an engagement saying, hey, we've got a new hospital. Aren't you lucky?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, what furnishings would you like in there? You know, it's just, it's highly problematic. And they kind of sneaked this one through because they should have actually said at the beginning of this process, I feel, and this is the way I think is the solution to try and have a look at this again. They should have said, we need more crisis support opportunities and provision in Manchester. Community, what do you think? How could that be provided? But what they've done is they think, oh, we've lost a hospital in central Manchester because of private finance initiative. We couldn't afford it anymore. So we lost these beds in central Manchester. We've got a parcel of land. We've got an architect. We can get 90 million quid out of the government. Let's just build 155. No real consideration of determining what the needs are. So we wrote a letter saying just that. These are the needs. COVID, Black Lives Matter. We've got the worst record in Manchester of nearly any city in the country in relationship to the amount of coercive practice that's going on with Black people in the city and other minority ethnic groups as well. So, you know, in a sense, you can't just jump to that. We've got to examine the approach. You know, we've got to find a way to try. And so we've written a letter on behalf of citizens. So rather than going into the planning bodies and try to make it, we just said, no, we'll write to the Andy, asking him, can we pause this planning while we consider the implications and, you know, and to actually think about other ways we might be able to do this. And my dream is that I've seen services which have been running for 30, 40 years. They have no locked doors. They don't have to use that paraphernalia restraint and holding people down because they use negotiate. And if it takes a long time in the beginning, you build the trust and the communication with the person, and that works for years. You know, you put the energy in the first place, getting that person's trust, not locking them down and holding them down. But also, they don't have that environment of buildings where everything is locked. It changes a lot. Fight and flight. If I'm frightened in one of these spaces and you don't give me the option of being able to get out of there, what's left?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? And the environment has an impact on us. And like you say, we need soothing, calming, connective environments where people can begin to feel into what's happening to them and begin to process that without it being numbed down or being locked away. We've got a comment here from John Cooney in Manchester as well. He's sort of saying about once you get the medicated treatment, you're under the home. I mean, this is probably another show, a late night show or something, Paul, but the Home Office, meaning that they can section you. We've got all the kind of laws around that.
It's a really interesting thing. I mean, why does a group of people, a specific individual group of people, community of interest, people in that word I'm not using, it's called the something act.
Yeah.
That's what those words are. And but why have a special legislation for a particular community of people? It makes no sense. You could cover their needs under vulnerability, capacity, and other legislation, not special legislation. Because John is right. Basically, if you have schizophrenia, right, you have to, and you are on one of these on one of these treatment orders, which says you have to take the medication. You are given medication which actually will reduce the length of your life by about 20 years. I mean, this is not known, but people with this diagnosis of schizophrenia live 20 years less. And it's not anything intrinsic about the disease process. But the problem is, schizophrenia doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Actually, as a, you know, there's no blood test for it. And they've never found anything in the brain. It's out there. There's a lot of really senior advisors, and this is not me talking as some kind of mad radical, but there's loads of really senior professors of psychiatry throughout Europe and beyond in the States are saying, basta, enough with the schizophrenia, drop it. And there's a big campaign going on at the moment to drop schizophrenia as a condition in itself, because it's really deprives people of hope. Yeah. You know, if you go home and say, I've got schizophrenia, your siblings are thinking, shit, I'm not going to get married. You know, because they're going to say...
It does. It impacts on people like that who know they may have a history of it, and then they're told that because you've got a history of it in your family, maybe you're going to be susceptible, you know, and that gets the mind worrying about it, and we start creating symptoms and physical, you know, it's absolutely. It's time to move on.
So I'm 65 at the moment. So I'm 65 in...
Which is unbelievable, Paul. I'd never say you were 65. You're looking good for that.
So most of me, yeah. So I'm 31st. So I've decided, I've probably got 10 good years left. So I decided that I've done loads of things, compromise, work for different organisations, but this is going to be my 10 years to try and be part of something, to be part of this energy, and bring my knowledge of working in different parts of the world. And my love at the moment is working in Brazil, which I can't go to anymore, which is so sad. But learning from other cultures and communities from all over the place, which help inform this. I mean, from Brazil, I get solidarity, I get community, I get dancing, I get this kind of energy about emotional honesty with each other, which I bring that back. And equally, they take something from our culture. So this idea of, I call it local global, having a global outlook, but really working on that local level. But local communities connecting up globally is very powerful.
Brilliant.
So that's where I'm going over the next few years, I think.
And on that note, darling, because the interview's coming to an end now, what can we share with people who may be watching this locally? Oh, it's nationwide now. International. We're on Zoom. We're on the internet. How can people get involved? Whether you're experiencing any of these difficulties, maybe a family, maybe you just want to help with the campaign about the hospital in Manchester. I mean, how can people get hold of you and find out about the groups that are around?
Yeah. So I really, also because it will boost our visitor figures, go to the NIAMOS website. If you just put NIAMOS into
it's NIAMOS.com.
Yeah.
NIAMOS.com. And if you look on there's a drop downs for the living room. And find the information there. You can always just get in touch with me.
So we've got a taking control of medication group. We're just about to start a new mutual support group for people who want to consider their relationship with their medication. We've got a Hearing Voices group, families group, and we're evolving new kinds of activities based on what people say they want. So this is a two-way street. We're not just interested in what we can offer you, but what you can offer us. So we're really looking for people to get involved, whoever you are, if you believe. And what should you do? It's all found, if you don't live in Manchester, but you do this somewhere else. I think the most important thing is founding everything we do on a simple values, human rights values, nothing about the person without the person. There's simple messaging that we can put out and try to be consistent with those values. So when we create a new project, we are really aware of not messing with people's human rights, but actually enhancing them. So it's about empowerment. This journey is about empowerment. Ultimately, well, I would say that because I'm a community development worker, but it's about that growing your sense of autonomy, having purpose in your life, being part of a community where you can share your concerns. And I talk about communities of interest as well as geographic communities, like people who hear voices, share a common interest, and can support each other. And also really challenging this idea of normal. Really challenge that. What the hell is that anyway? Who would want to be normal, for God's sake?
What does that mean? Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. We could talk all day for sure. Maybe we do like a late night or something, because there's so many different threads and avenues and things to explore and talk about around this. Please do get in touch if you're affected by any, or you want to get involved in some sort of way. We look forward to hearing from you. So thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate this. And I'll be seeing you soon. And hopefully we'll see you back on here soon as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we're going to be joining Christina Baddy. She's our regular contributor. She's going to be sharing this week's Mayan calendar report. See you in a few minutes.
Hi there, and welcome to your Galactic Mayan report for Saturday, the 15th of August. So today is a blue solar storm day. So what does that mean within the Galactic Mayan calendar? Well, firstly, blue storm is that cataclysmic energy. It's that transformation. It's the storm that's blowing through. We've been seeing a lot of that this week in the UK. So it really is that moving things through. It's blowing through all of the cobwebs and floating everything out into the ether. And solar is around completion. It's around coming into mastery. So it's really getting a sense of this blue storm energy. That is the energy for today. and it is the 9th day of the Blue Monkey Wave spell. Now, we were speaking about this last week. So Blue Monkey is all around the childlike energy and playfulness, and a little bit of that trickster energy in as well. So really great opportunity to drop into creativity, as we were speaking about, dropping into play and just really allowing that to come up to fruition. It feels like there's been a tenderness in the energy this week, and really felt like we need to nourish ourselves. That's what's been coming up for me, for sure. So it's really just allowing ourselves to be in that child energy of really nourishing the heart of who we are. So we are going to be in the Blue Monkey Wave spell up until Thursday, when we will transition into Yellow Seed. Yellow Seed energy is around dropping in to the web, the weaving web of reality, the seeds of consciousness that we want to plant. So Thursday is a beautiful, really great day for doing some journaling, doing some dreaming. Who are you? Who will you be? Who are you becoming as we journey through these lives? So really taking an opportunity to put yourself a year, 5 year, 10 years in the future. Who are you? Who are you becoming? And really drop into that in the present tense, to drop those seeds deep into your consciousness, to manifest the person that you are, really, truly deep down within. Not only for yourself, but also for the world that is surrounding us. What world do you want to be living in the next year, 2 years, 10 years, 50 years? Where is this world going? With everything that's just crumbling around us right now, this is the perfect time for us to use this yellow seed energy to really drop into the field what it is that we want to create, as everything, all the illusions are falling down around us. So this is the energy for this week. I would highly, highly recommend, if you don't already have a practice of journaling, really get yourself a journal and start to be journaling any creative ideas, any thoughts, any inspiration that you have. The universe may give you some tips and tricks as to where it is that you're going on your specific journey through this lifetime. And we will speak way more about the yellow seed energy next week. But for now, enjoy the rest of this Blue Monkey Wave spell. We've come out of the heart. We are transforming into the second half now of the Galactic Mayan 9-month process. So enjoy the rest of this playful energy, or however it is, however it's showing up for you. It might not be playful, it may be tender, it might be that you are really starting to feel your heart in ways that you may not have felt before. So be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, journal and drop some seeds for yellow seed as we go in on Thursday. Sending you so much love throughout these times, and I look forward to catching up with you next week for our next installment of the Galactic Mayan Calendar. Take care. Bye.
And welcome back. Big thank you to Christina for this week's report. Now I'm being joined by my second guest, and I have with me lovely young lady Kay Hagen. And Kay, we've only really met each other today, but I'm really touched by what you're doing and your story. So as I was saying in the beginning, Kay actually committed to doing a daily breathwork practice, and you've been doing that for nearly a year now, around a year. And I'd love to find out more about that and sort of what drew you to that. I struggle with daily practice and daily commitments. My mind likes to keep itself busy. So I'm always like really inspired by people who can actually do that. So welcome, Kay, joining us from Levenshulme. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I saw you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I do.
Which name escapes me. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
So it's Earthly Lunar Breathwork, and Earthly Lunar has 2 A's at the end.
Okay, that's lovely. Maybe I'll put the details up of that on my link later on. And what you're doing there is offering, is it different videos every day, or you're just offering different kinds of breathwork videos on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I'm doing about weekly videos. I listen to my intuition and coast when I need to or want to. So sometimes I'll have rests, but it's mostly weekly guided breathwork videos. I'm doing mostly pranayama technique, which is breathing in on counts of breaths, and it's a type of Indian tradition, like ancient Indian. Also, Buddhists do it, and the Zenists do it. I also have some other ones, which is like the Wim Hof, which gives you more energy. So I concentrate on mental health with like anxiety and depression. I've been through both. Anxiety is what I'm going through sort of at the moment, but with breath work, it's really helped me a lot, especially doing it daily.
Okay, that's great. You know, and it's really brave of you, and really appreciated coming on and doing an interview like this and sharing your experience of anxiety. There isn't anybody on the planet who doesn't have anxiety to a lesser or greater degree, you know, and it can be very, very problematic if we don't know what to do with it and we're kind of stuck with it. And it, you know, it's straight into our nervous systems. I think it's one of the worst feelings that we can have as human beings. It's like, how do we contend with that? You know, and just following on from the interview with Paul, they're like, where can we go? What can we do? But there's also so many self-help things that we can try and start. You know, it's not one thing sort of suits everybody. There's so many different things out there, breathwork being part of that. But you were experiencing anxiety. Was that something that you knew was sort of coming from past experiences, or, you know, how was it affecting you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I think it started all with I got very depressed when I was at school, about 16. So I went through that. I wasn't really sure what to do. It was when I found yoga, which also has a form of breath work in it.
At 16, you found yoga?
Yeah, but it was a very maybe once a month practice, but I could definitely feel the feelings of what it was beneficial to me and stuff straight away. So yeah, and then I didn't really know how to cope with that for a bit, but then
The depression, yeah.
the depression.
Was there any help available? Could you talk to anybody? Was it something that you were trying to contend with on your own?
I was sort of trying to contend with it on my own, because when you're depressed, you'd feel like you're the only one that has it in the world, but it's definitely not true.
Yeah.
But there was but it wasn't until about 18 that when I went to university that I started getting help for it, and that's when I went on antidepressants, and they helped for the bit. And at the time I was doing a bit more yoga, and all my modalities I was finding that were helping me sort of aid the symptoms of it. And then that sort of disappeared eventually. And then these feelings of anxiety started to creep up, and this was a completely different feeling. And that's when I was started to do some meditation, and I was with a guy at the time, and he was doing it loads. And it ended up being a really bad relationship. So I'd found all these great things for him, and then it was a bad relationship. But then after it ended, I carried on doing this. I was doing yoga every day before work at 6 a.m. It was hard to get into the routine. But when you start feeling the benefits, you're like, if I don't do this, how will I feel? And then eventually, so meditation, you can find it a bit hard because you just sat there. You're like, oh, there's a thought coming up, and there's another one. And then you're supposed to think oh, everyone's supposed to not have any thoughts. So then I found breath work, which is a bit more, it's more physical, and you can concentrate on your breath and counting, and that really helped all the thoughts go from my mind.
Yeah, there's something about in meditation, that kind of training the mind, as it were, to just not engage with the thoughts, accept them, you know. And there's different kinds of meditation, surely, but most of us find that impossible to do, you know, or we have to be meditating for 40 years for 8 hours a day or something. So I really like breath work in all the different varieties that we can find it. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of what we can do with breath work, but there's something about focus. You know, you're having to focus on the breath, or you're having to focus on the count, and it's kind of like sort of it's quite empowering, that I think, kind of being in the driving seat and directing the way that you're going and thinking, and for the benefit of yourself, like making that the focus is very, very, very powerful. And even just sort of simple breathing techniques can do that. Incredible.
Yeah. And with anxiety, it's because our body's gone into like flight response. So our breathing becomes more shallow. So breath work helps you to make these breaths longer and calm down your nervous system. So
it's like hacking into the nervous system, isn't it? You know, we
yeah.
might not be able to sort of deal with it here because there's just so much going on. But what we can do is hack into the way the body's responding to it and the way the nervous system is responding. And breath's huge. I mean, we can't really be anxious unless we've got oxygen going in, or we're quickly shallow breathing, and we're doing all the things, and we're holding ourselves, if you do when we're anxious or when we're frightened. So when we can start to kind of really disrupt that kind of response and get the flow moving again. You know, I used to say to my clients with panic disorder, you know, coming from even a CBT model, it was panic is too much oxygen. You've hyperventilated on a biological level. That's what's happened. I know there's tons of stuff going on up here in the meaning that we draw from it. Yeah. So what could you share with us? I mean, it'd be lovely if you could do like a little version of one of your breathwork sessions towards the end of our chat. That'd be really nice. But could you share with us now like a really, really simple breath work technique that people can do sat on the bus watching TV or whatever, that we can just, you know, we just sort of very, very gently introducing it into our flow and into our lives?
Yeah, definitely. So one I've actually used today before this interview is box breathing. Box breathing.
Box breathing, okay.
So it's you inhale for 4, then you hold the inhale for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold the exhale for 4. And this sort of resets your breath, and it's very easy to do on the bus. Like no one's going to notice that you're breathing this way. So yeah, and it's helpful for focus and all. It definitely resets your breath.
And doing it now, it's really good, isn't it? Even just doing one of the breaths and just kind of like resetting and re-regulating the way you breathe.
Like, doing it a few times really can just instantly change your mindset.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so good. That's sort of just giving it a little try, and remembering also that these techniques are very individual. You know, not every one is going to be suitable for everybody. I think I've shared something similar to this, and you know, and the mind is too busy and there's too much anxiety for some people. Even in changing the breath rate, we've got to go very, very, very carefully and very, very slowly with it. But yeah, I mean, I'd invite people to give that a try and see what that's like as a first port of call. That's brilliant.
There's also an even simpler one, is basically just breathing into your belly rather than your chest, because it just like oxygenates. You can get more oxygen in, and as babies, you might notice that they're only breathing from their belly, so it's like one of the most natural ways to breathe and the most calming ways to breathe.
So just doing that, and again, you know, that can, if we've got used to breathing up here in the chest, this can take some doing, just even like knocking it down.
Yeah, some people don't even know how to do it. So it can take some practice.
Yeah. But just even checking that, so, you know, hand on your chest, hand on your belly, just seeing what actually moves when you're breathing, and seeing if it is here. Okay, you know, that could just be, the more we breathe here, the more anxious we're going to feel. It's a two-way process. So that's great. Yeah, what a great reminder for people to like just see if they can push it down into the belly and expanding that diaphragmatic muscle. Get that going.
Yeah, and also apparently serotonin is made in the belly. So by doing this,
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's obviously connected to the brain, but you produce it in your belly. So breathing like this is very beneficial.
Whoa, yeah, I didn't realize that. You know, as we know, like belly health and all that stuff's really important. But yeah, getting the kind of respiratory system working in such a way that it's not putting the body under pressure. Like we're not having to kind of try and regulate around it. We're just breathing as we should be.
Mm.
Really, really important. We were chatting earlier as well, okay, and you shared that you actually used to do wildlife photography.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do.
and that you'd done a degree as well where you'd looked at sort of nature therapy, like you'd done your dissertation around nature and breath work. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, so I've always been in love with nature and all that, and then also photography, so I combine them both. And then I sort of realized that when I was out in like the field or taking pictures, that I felt so much calmer, and like
Mm.
I could come back and I feel like I could just go straight to sleep, and all my worries would disappear. So that's why I became interested in that. And then, so I wrote my dissertation on nature therapy, which
Wow.
is where people just go out for walks and just they sort of think everything over and like
Mhm.
allow their feelings to be thought, and then by the end, not always, but sometimes by the end, like they could have worked something out and they can feel so much better and get some relief from their mental health problems.
Wow, that's amazing. And of course, you know, even sort of the mainstream's picked up on that, haven't they? We have GPs prescribing walks in nature
Mm,
and forest bathing and that
yeah.
kind of thing. And yeah, and I suppose one of the ways we can look at that is around frequency and the way that it kind of like resonates and resets just how our
Mm,
whole energy field maybe
yeah.
help us
So
to
just
feel.
being in contact with the earth as well, it's just very
Mhm.
grounding and
Yeah, yeah,
really
absolutely.
healing.
So I suppose if we can combine that and get into nature and do some breath work, get under a nice tree,
Yeah. Get like
and
some really fresh oxygen, which will be very good for your body.
yeah, yeah,
It's very
yeah. I
important.
really can't underestimate that, and especially if we're living in the city and we're not living near the green, as many people are not near to green spaces. It's well worth jumping on the bus or whatever and getting out there for reset, for sport to call, just change of scenery and those
Yeah.
sorts of things. A bit of a run round and yeah, brilliant. All right, Danny. So that's all like really interesting. I can't wait to see what you're going to do sort of in the future because you've got the wildlife photography, that nature and the breath work, and it really feels like you're beginning to build something. And thank you so much for offering these videos out to people as well. That's really lovely. And I wondered if we could do maybe a 10-minute something like that. Let's see how we're doing for time. Yeah, we've got time. A 10-minute kind of just breathwork session where we could all do this together. Okay, I'm going to invite the producer in our studio and anybody else who's in there as well, and Paul, who might still be around, and anybody who's watching either live or is going to watch this later on to join in with this, because just want, if you've never done this kind of breath work before, just for an invitation for people to really experience it and know what we're talking about here. So I think we could do sort of 12 minutes. I don't know why that's coming to mind, but a real sort of 12-minute breathing session together. And I'll do it with you. We can all do it. Okay. And we
Yeah.
can reset as well. What we can also do is kind of feed in intentions, but even for today, if we want more love and light and let go of some things today, just there's so many things we can weave into this breath work. So that we can reset and have a really good day today, whatever day it is that you're watching this. Okay. And I'll hand over to you, Kate, to get us settled and what have you. And join in on the breath work. Brilliant. Thank you. Over to you, Danny.
Right. So if you can find a comfortable seated position, maybe get like a pillow to sit on to like make your spine nice and straight. You can also lie down on a bed. Sometimes you may fall asleep, but maybe that's what you need today. And also you can sit on the side of a chair with your feet on the floor. So when you're ready, just close down your eyes and start taking deeper breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. Trying to fill your belly full of oxygen as you do this. Inhaling and exhaling, pushing your belly back towards your spine. Hopefully you're feeling a little more calm now. You can also maybe do some small movements to release any tension in your body. So rolling your shoulders forwards and then backwards. Maybe rolling your wrists, giving a little shake, or putting them back down on your legs and concentrating on the breath. Inhaling, filling the belly with air. And on the exhale, maybe sigh out this time. This is great for releasing more tension. Do a few more in and out breaths. And then we'll try some box breathing. So this will be inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and then holding the exhale for 4. Just imagining a box as you do this. So one more inhale through the nose and exhale before we begin. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Now carry on at your own pace. Inhaling through the nose, holding the breath in the belly, or releasing either out the mouth or your nose, and then holding at the bottom. So now I'm going to try another breath. This one is called the 4-7-8 and also named relaxing breath. So you inhale for 4, hold for 7, and then exhale for 8. Don't worry if it feels a bit hard. Just go back to a normal breath. We'll slow down the counts. So we'll start with inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale and continue at your own pace. If this feels hard, you can inhale for 2, hold for 3, and exhale for 6. Inhaling for 4, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8, releasing all the air out of your belly. Hopefully you're feeling a bit more relaxed. This breath is also great if you have insomnia or sleep problems. It's great for sending you off to sleep at night. If your mind wanders, don't worry, this is natural. Just come back to the breath. Take one more inhale, one more round of this, and then return back to a more normal breath, just in and out of your nose. Notice how you're feeling. Set any intentions and for your day. And also thank yourself for taking part in breathing. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. The session is over.
That's great. I don't know whether I'm back on. Hello, okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wow, that was absolutely lovely. You've got such a nice, soft, gentle voice. That was so nice. And I feel very calm now. I feel very, very relaxed. And what I was noticing is just sort of just how prolific these thoughts are. It kept trying to want to think about what's happening later and sort of taking me off and distracting, and like this real sort of need to train with this to sort of
Yeah. It definitely takes work. It's like, that's why it's called breath work. It's, you have to keep coming back to it.
yeah, over and over again. Somebody said something to me last week about how all the time that we're thinking, like, we've just got this kind of constant chatter. It's quite unconscious. We know from other therapy models, it's just our managers and our safekeepers, just trying to manage things, that we're kind of manifesting from that. With it, the thoughts are so powerful, like we don't understand that, and so it's outputting all the time. And it's usually all things to do with having to be safe and this kind of concern and worry, and then we're tapping into anxiety. So to stop it is so important. Is that you can't underestimate, just even not thinking for 1 second has such a big impact on your day and on the rest of your life and what you're constructing and what we think is the reality. And it's so very, very important.
Yeah, even just like throughout your day, remembering to take a deep in and out breath is really a good idea to do. Really brings you back to the present moment.
Yeah.
Not your worries or thoughts.
Yeah, that's very, the being in the present moment, because these thoughts are often dragging us into the future, which was anxiety driven thoughts, in the past, which tends to be depression, because it's hopeless, it's done, sort of thing, you know. And just these symptoms are the same thing, they've just got a different feeling about them. It's still, there's still kind of difficulties with perception and the way that we're thinking, and this is one of the ways that we can really start to change that. I just want to say, like, you've inspired me as well, because of this constant tussle I have with daily practice and having time in the morning and that kind of stuff. You just nailed it when you said, but when you realize how much better you feel, like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes you know you're going to feel better, you just still don't do it, but you
which
just
is like, wow, you know. That pesky ego really wants it to be in the driving seat, and, you know, and stop us from doing what's best for us, what's really good for us. That's great. Thank you so much for that. So where can people find you? Where's your YouTube channel? Are you on Facebook? Have you got a website? What do you?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel, you can just search Earthly Luna with 2 A's at the end, breathwork, and I should come up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a website, which is www.earthlywellbeing.co.uk, and that's sort of where you can find everything about me. I have an Instagram, which is where I post mostly. I do post about 3 times a week with some new breathwork techniques to try, and just general spirituality stuff and nature related stuff. Yeah.
Sounds lovely. And yeah, I'm thinking it'd be great to do like a regular breath work. Maybe we could share your videos on here, you know, so people could get into a regular practice, even if we're just doing this once a week together on a Saturday. And so we all get the chance, like, because you've really made me do that today, because I'd just gone off and been busy and not grounded. So really, really appreciate that. And thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And what you're practicing. It's been really lovely to speak to you, and you've just certainly got the right tone and everything to do the breath work. That was really nice. So thank you, and no doubt we'll be seeing you on here again soon, hopefully, either on video or live, just sharing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this week's show. We didn't have a cookery slot this week. We'll get that back to you by next week, hopefully. And hopefully we're going to introduce some breathwork things as well. So thank you so much for watching and tuning in today or in the future. As we said, if you want to get in touch with anything that Paul Baker has shared on the show today, I mean, it's a subject that's very close to all of our hearts, around health and well-being and helping. And so please do that. And also, you know, there's an invitation for us all to check in with ourselves this week, check in with each other, make sure that we're keeping as grounded as we can. See if we can as well sort of check our reactions to things also, kind of noticing a lot of that going on around all the stuff that we're seeing on social media. And, you know, we can have these kind of visceral kind of reactions to that. Just to remember that, you know, when we've got the worst kind of hatred and disgusted or whatever it is, no matter who we're directing at, whether it's Trump or the government or whoever it is, just to like really be mindful and watch that we are not then feeding more of that energy into the scenarios. Because it's very easy for us to do that when we feel like it's justified in some sort of way. But remember, it's still the same energy, you know, whether we're passing it, however we're passing it backwards and forwards. So I just felt strongly to say that. I was going to do a separate Facebook Live on it because temperatures are rising as we're going into uncertainty. We've got to keep as still as possible. And the 3 words that have been ringing in my mind this week, as my flights have been cancelled and things have been going on, is to keep like this no matter what. However uncertain it seems, however scary that next piece of information seems to be, either on the news or on social media or whatever, that we have to keep coming back into this place of peace and harmony, that we have to make sure that we're not falling out with each other to any kind of degree as much as we can, because that is feeding into all of the fear and our perception of that. We've got to be very, very, very careful. You know, we want to come together in community. We want to love and support each other, but that means that's got to start from within us. And that means that we can't be firing back in the same kind of energy of hatred. And, you know, I've seen all kinds of words like vile and disgusting, and I get it. There's lots of dark stuff coming up. There's lots of Epstein and, you know, paedophile and all this kind of weird stuff that's going on out there. And of course we're going to feel like these people are X, Y, and Z, but we are feeding into the same energy by doing that. So dropping in, asking for like what's best for the greatest good, not sitting on our keyboards, just pouring more and more of that energy out there, coming together in love and kindness. This is what we want ultimately. We're only distressed and upset because we're not having that in our community. So we've got to bring that to the table, and we've got to look after each other. And okay, if somebody wants to wear the mask or not, okay, that's just where we're all at. The important thing is that we don't drop into some lower base energy surrounding all of that. So just felt really inclined to say that today. If anybody needs to reach out or have any help around that, please do get in touch. And just wishing so much love to everybody, staying calm, keeping settled, and everybody look after each other and yourselves. And we'll see you next week for another amazing show. Bye, everybody.